The intention of this is to be a workshop where you can get hands-on with a computer and actually get working with generative AI APIs. I see that you are all having lunch, so we'll see how well that goes as far as actually getting hands on keyboards. But hopefully, you'll still be able to really see how this all works and how you would actually, use the Jupyter notebooks to actually, interact with generative AI prompts. Um, don't need to tell you too much about myself. I am a Google developer expert. You've probably heard from a few of us today. I'm actually a Google developer expert in Android. I've been that for, coming up on 10 years. And this has been just a refreshing change for me to get involved with generative AI. The one thing that is so interesting to me is how quick the get started curve is with Android. There's such a bit of effort involved in getting Android Studio and getting device emulators, all those things going. There's quite a bit of effort involved. But for getting started with Python, Jupyter Notebooks, which is really kind of the language of data science and generative AI, it's super, super simple. So feel free to, interject with questions or whatever. I certainly can hear you. And I think that we have a moderator. Also, I should mention that this is my only slide today. I'm pretty proud of it. I think it's pretty good. Other than that, I'm actually going to be moving on to just showing a Jupyter notebook. We'll be walking through a notebook and seeing how that works. So basically, the intention of this workshop is to get started, you would go download Python, get it installed. One thing I would like to really mention when you are installing Python is to make sure that you allow it to set the path when it's installing it. It just makes it so much easier to get Python installed fully into your path, so everything is just kind of working together. Once you have Python going, where then you will then have the tool that comes with it that's called PIP. This is basically just like a npm or Gradle. It's a dependency management tool that allows us to go and install different packages from the interwebs that will help us work with tools. Jupyter Notebook is the tool we are using. And I realize there may be a typo there. I believe that that's probably should be pip install JUPYTER. Actually copied that from OpenAI this morning. But I'm pretty sure that's a typo. I'm not going to run through that install right now. But you definitely need to do that yourself if for some reason one doesn't work, and I'll certainly fix this slide. Last thing is, once you've done that, you'll just go to this GitHub location and you can download this notebook that I've created that I'm going to step through next. And that then you'll be able to step through it yourself once you have Python and Jupyter Notebook installed. At this point, I was going to vamp a little bit because I was hoping that people would be installing, Python madly on their computers. But I'm not sure that that's going to happen. I can't actually see the crowd anymore in my StreamYard. I don't know if the admins can fix that. I would love to be able to see the crowd. But anyway, I wanted to just start going through kind of what we'll be doing today. So first things first, the tools that I have chosen to demonstrate today are not the only tools you can use for generative AI development. You can use Kotlin, you can use lots of other different tools, languages. You can also use IntelliJ tools or VS Code, which I think I may demonstrate shortly after I go through the first demonstration. But Python really is the language that is being used across the generative AI landscape. It's really a pragmatic language, easy to understand on a structural level. And also there's lots of libraries and open source community support that makes it really great to use. So I know there are some people that might prefer to use the language that they're most comfortable with now, and you can. Are you not seeing my notebook now? Are you seeing a slide or a notebook?
We only see a slide.
Stop sharing and I will share that. Okay, and I can see you guys again, you folks again, not just guys. So hopefully this setup is the one that we keep and everybody can, I now see that you are seeing the notebook correctly. Okay, so that's enough for Python. Some people might choose to use a different language or something, but I would encourage everybody to just kind of stick with Python. Certainly for this demo today, Python is the tool. Then the other thing that I'm using that's super common is Jupyter Notebook. So basically, Notebook is a way that you can create different cells. You see that each of these different kind of elements in the UI are different kind of functional cells. You can create markdown cells, which are just markdown text, which I've got a few of those here. And then you can create Python cells. So basically, this allows you to kind of create a nice functional way of documenting your code and also then running through your code in a nice granular manner. Basically, how it works is you can run each cell linear from top to bottom, or you could run each cell individually. So if you only wanted to run the cells at the top once, but then you might want to kind of, once you get down here, you might want to kind of tweak something or change it and then run it again. You don't need to run everything from the top. You only need to run the cell that you have changed something in, rerun it, and then you can see the changes that you've made. So it's a really great way to kind of run through code in a really modular and granular way. Okay, so awesome. Assuming that you have at this point installed Python correctly, got it into your path, and got PIP going so that you could then install Jupyter, you would just simply from the command line, I don't want to escape to show you that, but from the command line, you would navigate on your computer to the folder where you want to open a notebook or look at a notebook. In this case, the folder that you have downloaded this particular notebook to, and you would just type Jupyter space notebook on the command line, and that would start up your notebook. And you would basically then it'll start up a website, a web view that you're looking at here. Awesome. So we're doing really good. We've installed Jupyter, and we are now actually ready to start talking to our first. Yep.
Can we get some?
Get the GitHub link.
Mike, we get some questions. Can you make the font a little bit bigger?
Sure.
And then the GitHub link, right?
Got it.
And Mike, if you want to post the GitHub link on the backend chat, what I'll do is I'll put it onto the stream. So this is live on YouTube as well. You guys can copy it from there and run it. Okay. Or if you have a short code, I can share that.
Okay, so I've shared the GitHub link that was on the main page in the private chat of StreamYard. Are you able to see that font better now in the notebook?
Yes, we can.
Is that good enough? You want me to go a little bigger?
A little bit bigger. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, great. So hopefully you guys can see that. Thank you so much for making sure that that's all visible and that you can see all this stuff. So I appreciate you stopping me and making sure that we can you can actually see the code. Again, you should have access to it. You should be able to again, just to reiterate, once you have installed Python and installed Jupyter, you should be able to open this particular notebook and run through this notebook just like I'm about to. You can run through it yourself and you can see all this stuff happen just exactly like I'm running through it. Okay, so at this point we have installed Jupyter and we are now going to talk to our first Generative AI API. And that is the Hugging Face Transformers API. I chose this one because there is no API key needed for this one. So this will be a great first one to, get try to make sure that everything is working as we would expect. We're going to use PIP again to install the two different libraries that we need, Transformers and Torch. Those are the Hugging Face API libraries that we need. Once that's done, we're going to create this function that basically takes a prompt. It does a lot of things. It basically is going to take a prompt, and then it's going to set up this transformer exchange so that we can, see something happen when we want to talk to a generative AI thing. In this case, we're using GPT-2-medium. In each of these different helper functions that this is just a helper function to help us talk to Hugging Face. I guess I should have said that in the beginning. Basically, each of these different helper functions that I'm going to show you today are just built up of different APIs that you set up to establish different parameters and things. In this case, some examples are I'm going against this foundation model, the GPT-2-medium model. There are nuances to which size and type of model you might want to go to. And then down here, I'm actually returning a specific length of tokens, because if you don't, the AI could tend to just kind of spit out a bunch of stuff, as that's the way the Hugging Face API works. Okay, once I've created that helper function, I'm actually going to execute it by just calling the generate text function with a prompt. Okay, so let's go ahead and run through this. So this is the first bit of code that we want to run, and you can, the way to run it, the easiest way is hold down the shift key and then hit enter. There isn't a lot of great feedback in the Jupyter Notebook API, Jupyter Notebooks, to really show you when something's happening, which is unfortunate, because it's not really easy to see that something's happening. So I'll run this and you'll see what I'm talking about. So you see that it took a moment to for that thing to pop up. And actually, this is just an error message. So when you see this, don't worry so much about this. It's common and nothing to worry about. I know there's a question. I can hear. Just 1 second. I'll just finish my statement and then, okay, that's great. You can see that there was something that was happening. We were, to be clear, what we were doing is we were sending the prompt in once upon a time, and we're waiting for Hugging Face to return us back what they wanted to expand on that, which we limited it to 150 tokens. Otherwise, this would have been much bigger. So I'm going to stop and go ahead and listen to the question.
Can you hear the question now? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Could you explain the piece of code, and do you mind talking a little bit about the warning that we're getting? What does it actually mean? Detention mask and that talking about that.
You know what? I don't really know, and it doesn't really matter. And that's going to be a diversion that is not really relevant. It's going to, it doesn't matter. I kind of looked it up. I asked OpenAI, what does this mean? How do I get rid of it? It gave me some feedback on what I could do, but it doesn't matter. What does matter, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to defer your question like that, and I don't mean any insult by that, obviously. But what I wanted to demonstrate here is just talking to an API using Python and notebooks, which I've done. And that error message is kind of something that is specific to this API, which we may or may not be able to like deduce or fix. Does that? I know that's not a satisfying answer. Did you want to follow on, or I'll just continue on? Okay, but just again to demonstrate what happened was we did issue the once upon a time, and it returned us 150 tokens worth of expounding upon that. So that's great. At this point, we have actually now successfully set up Jupyter Notebooks to talk to a API. So I'm going to move on now because that's talking to that Hugging Face API is not super. It's not super successful, as you can just see. It's kind of doesn't do that much. It's kind of slow. And also, we're at a Google conference, so I wanted to talk about Palm, which is their large language model API. That's very easy to work with and follows the exact same model as what we were doing before. So first things first, you're going to install dependencies using pip like we did before. And then next things is why I didn't start with Palm, but obviously it's a limitation, is Palm does require an API key. So you'll need to go to Palm and get an API key, which you'll then need to set. You'll then need to set in your environment. So in a workshop, I would encourage you right now, to actually go through these steps, get a key, and then set them up real quick. But we're kind of moving along a little bit. So let me just make sure I haven't skipped any steps. Okay, so I have done that. I've got a key and I've added it into my environmental settings. So at this point, this first import, and this is just to kind of validate that everything is working. The next thing I'm going to do is I need to install a new package called python.env as a pip dependency. I'm going to need to do that to fulfill the functionality of getting the API key from the environment itself. So again, just to reiterate what I haven't shown you, but you would need to do is you would need to go to Google, generate an API key for yourself, then install it as an environmental variable on your system with the key of Google API key. Once you have done that, then this code that I'm showing you now will go into your environment, grab that API key, and then allow us to use it when we configure Palm. I will mention that if you don't have that key, you could set those values hard-coded. You could set that hard-code that value here. That's obviously not a good idea because the way that notebooks are set up is they're really easy to share, as you have all seen since I shared this particular notebook with you all, as the foundation of this workshop. So if you do hard code that value and you accidentally upload that key into GitHub, GitHub has a functionality that it will notify the vendor of that key and it will disable that key instantly. And don't ask me how I know that, but it becomes a big pain in the butt if you accidentally do that because you have to generate new API keys for yourself, and it happens very quickly. Is there a question? Also, Also worth noting that this is Google API key and this is Google API base. You just set that. This is something different, so don't change that. Okay, so let's just make sure that I've run all the things above. Go ahead. I can't hear that question, so someone will have to repeat it into a mic.
Close the side window to see the full code screen.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks for the heads up on that. Okay, so at this point we have set the environmental variable and we have set up Palm. So we can then start to, as I mentioned above, when we were looking at the setup function for Hugging Face, we also, where we determined some of the different models, I just use the default, but there are different choices here. You go to Hugging Face and you kind of look into the different models they support and you choose which one is best for you. We do want to do the same thing with Palm, and we want to look at different models it supports. So that's what this function does. It just looks at the different models that Palm is supporting right now, and it tells us a little bit about what it does. Bison is for chat optimized. Text Bison is a model targeted for text generation, etc. So we're going to want to look at the different models it supports and then set which one we want to use. And in this case, we are going to use the Bison model, which is what we do here in these methods. Let me just make sure I'm running them all. Okay, so most of this was just kind of getting to know a Palm. At this point, the fact that we can interrogate Palm by asking about its models means that our API key is set up right and that we have the proper dependencies running and that we can talk to Palm. So that's really good, and that's, we're in good shape. The next thing I want to do is I want to create a helper function just like we had up above with generate text Hugging Face. This one's going to be generate text Palm. And in this case, it's going to take a few different values. And in this case, just the prompt. And then we're doing some other things by telling it the model we want to use and the temperature. Temperature is determined generative AI. If we set that higher, it will set the output to be more weird, for lack of a better term. But that's all that this function does. The retry here is a decorator that just tells the API to retry if there's an error. Okay, so let's run that. And so at this point, we are ready to do our first interrogation of the Palm API. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to send a prompt into Palm that says Saturdays are perfect for. And I hope that the response is going to be going to a dev fest in Waterloo and learning and becoming better people. But let's see what it tells us. It's probably going to tell us something different. Sleeping in, reading a book, or spending time with loved ones. So ouch. That's not exactly what we all agree with in the room, but Palm, you be you. So that's pretty cool. At this point, we've now validated that we are using Jupyter Notebooks to talk to a generative API, and we now talk to two different ones. So that's really fun, and that's really cool.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Whenever I try to get an API key, I get a Google page that says access restricted. Yes, is that
That's why this is remote.
That could be that's a Medusa question. I know he's at the front of the room, so just make sure to ask him that question in detail.
Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do is we will get you some Skills Boost credits I'll email it to you. We had a little bit of a bug. We can't sort that out. I'll get you an email. And what happens is you get access to GCP automatically. On top of that, I'll try to get you like $50 of credit. I gotta push that, but it will be happening soon. So, but you know what to do. You know what to play with. The skills boost will give you access to fool around with this at 1 hour time. But if it's new account, if you were to create it, you get $300 free US dollars in 90 days. But you need to put your credit card in. But put an alert saying, hey, if this goes more than $10, alert me so you can cut it down. Right? Just if you want to play on. So, and yeah, keep in touch. So you know how to get hold of this.
Yeah, and it also fundamentally may be that Palm API is not available yet in Canada, which is unfortunate because I'm actually going to DevFest Vancouver.
The API is available, but it's just bot is not available.
I wasn't clear on what the API costs were for Palm either, and it didn't. It doesn't appear that the costs for MakerSuite or Palm are very high, if anything. Not they will be eventually, but and also I don't know that the costs. But that's a question I didn't have the answer to coming into this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. We're right on track, which is good. This has been great. We've now talked to 2 different APIs, and I wanted to talk about how you might use Open API. I don't know if any of the folks in the room currently are pro users. You need to be, the $20 a month OpenAI Pro user to have access to the API. But if you do, it's the same process as I showed for Palm, where you just go to the links that I've shared here on the notebook, grab an API key, install it on your environment, and then we'll use that API key in a moment when we set up our helper function like I showed you above. So there is no, I was just gonna say something incorrect. There is an additional cost for using the API. It's pretty minimal for going against GPT-3.5 Turbo, which is what I'm using. A prompt is just a couple pennies, and the prompt cost depends on how big of a prompt you're sending in and how much you're sending out. So the currency of LLMs is tokens, which applies to kind of your words get converted to tokens, and it's pretty cheap for OpenAPI 3.5. Okay, so assuming you have an API key and that you have installed it on your environment, like we did with Palm, you're going to pip to install the OpenAPI dependencies on your system. And then we'll just run through the same sort of thing as we did before, where we're going to grab the OpenAPI key from the environment, set it up into the set up the OpenAPI system with that key, and then we're going to create a helper function that we're going to use to actually prompt the system. So like we saw before, we specify the type of model we're using, temperature, and some of the other things that you might want to change for your different API calls. So let me go ahead and run through that. So here it is. I'm going to generate text through OpenAPI, and you are Igor the pirate. Was there a question?
Anybody got any questions? Everybody following okay?
Oh, actually, yeah. How do we get access to this notebook?
Mike, some of them are still having trouble to get access to it.
I was just asking where we can find it. Is it sent to us by email?
Yeah, but what I would recommend is follow Mike on GitHub. I think that would be a Mike, you want to open your profile very quickly on GitHub so we can see it?
Sure, it's M. Wolfson. I don't necessarily want to do that right this moment, though, but I'll do that at the end. I'll escape out and I'll show where this is on GitHub for everybody. But yeah, I'm happy to show you. It's super. It is public. It's there. So So it's no problem. We're coming to the end anyway, which is great. Which is kind of cool because it's only 30 minutes, and we've already set up a notebook to talk to 3 different APIs. So here it is. The results from OpenAPI. I prompted it that you're Igor the pirate, and it gave me back a bunch of stuff that a pirate might say about treasure and his goal to find treasure. So we are done at this point. We have had a great time. We have now demonstrated how to use Python to talk to some different generative AI functionality. But I want to go just a little bit further since we haven't run out of time, and I didn't think we would, to talk about a foundation of prompt engineering, I guess, that I learned from Lawrence Maroney, who is director of AI at Google or something. He wrote a class called Pair Programming with LLMs, which I still have a to-do here. I guess I didn't get a chance to put that link in. I will update that link in GitHub so that everybody knows how to get to it. Where he talked about this prompt template that he uses that I think is really valuable and really worthwhile, and I wanted to just step through that so that everybody kind of has a framework for how you might work with AIs. Okay, so what he suggested is very straightforward, and that is you just start thinking about your prompts in 3 main sections. So the pre-section is going to be kind of establishing context about what you are. So you are a pirate, or you are a Python developer working on a web app, or you are a statistician looking at data about cancer, etc. That's what you do in the pre-message. In the question, this is where you actually tell it what to do. Your task today is to tell us your favorite joke about booty. And then the post is sort of the afterthoughts that you might have regarding your prompt. So these are things like formatting or different exclusions or other things that you may want to put after the question. So once you start thinking about that, you can apply that sort of template to all sorts of things. And I just want to show how that template might be set up. So that's just here. You can see I just have a pre-question and post. Small thing about LLMs is none of this white space really matters. That's just to help me kind of see things clearly, or you, as the case may be. So then I have you are Igor the pirate, tell us your favorite joke about booty, use child-friendly language, and output the results as JSON format, right? Those are the afterthoughts. So let's go ahead and run through that, set that up. So now that I have that, I just am going to generate a prompt using that prompt template and send those pre-post things in there, and then I'm going to generate the actual prompt. Few things worth noting is it did respond in JSON format, right? That's what these brackets are, and it told me the right thing. Why did the pirate go to school? To improve his writing skills so he could better understand the treasure maps and find more booty. That's not a very funny joke, as we learned from ChatGPT, but it is very child-friendly, actually. So, were there questions? I have one last part. If there are not questions, which I do need your help with.
What was that question?
Okay.
Somebody wants you to repeat the course that you mentioned with.
Bet. So that course was called. This is the time is going to be perfect on this. That course was from Lawrence Maroney, and it is called Paired Programming with LLMs. And I will share that link. I'll update that, after we're done here. I will give a little polish to my slides, including posting that on there. And I'll share my slides, which I'll show you how to get to those in a moment. Okay, so the last thing is, in order for me to get, I would like to write a post about this article so I could put it on LinkedIn and do some other things. In fact, I definitely need to get a picture of the crowd, so I could put that on my LinkedIn. But I would like to create a blog post with your help right now, and of course, OpenAI's help, that I could post to LinkedIn about my experiences this morning. So maybe you can help me go through that. So for the I wanted to mention a little bit about myself being a Google developer expert, speaking at Waterloo Dev Fest. Is there anything else I need to put in there?
The hashtag.
Okay.
Don't mention the weather.
What is the hashtag?
Hashtag DevFest Waterloo.
Okay, so now we've given it the context, although we may want to put that DevFest thing somewhere later. So your task is to write a blog post All right, I can't necessarily talk and type at the same time. It's if I was maybe that would be a good skill for interviewing. I'm just putting a little bit of information. If anybody has any ideas about what they would suggest, would be good to write here, let me know. Okay, so I just wrote a little bit about your task is to talk about how easy it is to get started with Jupyter Notebooks. Don't forget to mention how fun it is to be learning with friends. And then the last thing I want to do is I just want to, I guess, output this in Markdown. So the last thing I wanted to demonstrate about this is how flexible Jupyter Notebooks are. At this point, we've kind of run everything top to bottom, and seen everything working to from top to bottom and one by one. Because I only changed these 3 values, I only need to rerun these cells themselves. I don't need to run anything above that because that all remains the same. So I'm just going to rerun the cells that I changed, and then we'll see what kind of output it gives us. Hopefully a really nicely formatted article that I can post to LinkedIn. You can see the one bit of feedback that you can tell that it's still working is that's an asterisk in that little brace instead of a number. And I will say that OpenAI calls take quite a bit of time. Well, that looked pretty good, actually. It's kind of fun because you can see that it actually generated properly formatted Markdown for me. So I'll just be able to post that right into my blog. It even included, included where I will add the link myself later. Unfortunately, it didn't find the proper link for me. And a bunch of text about, how you might get started with the different things, including some great steps for, exactly what I just showed you. That was just pretty cool. So I will obviously have to edit this document myself, but that was pretty fun that, from start start to finish. I started with nothing, and I finished with a fully functioning generative AI code. That's it. We're right up against time. I'm more than happy to answer questions. I will show you my GitHub link real quick.
Anybody got any other questions? I put that course link on the YouTube stream as well. We will share the recording with you after, and we would love to do more workshops like this, more hands-on. I know this is a subject that we kind of jam-packed into, and we want to showcase everything. But if we want to do a more in-depth, we will have some of those workshops ready because we are partnering up with GDSC in Australia, and we'd love to bring to Mr. Roger and Lori as well. So stay tuned for that. We have time for one or two questions. If we have any questions, other than questions, we'll figure that out.
So looking at all these options available for sending prompts, why would basically usually why would one choose, for example, GPT over Hugging Face or GPT over Palm or any other thing? Like how can you compare all of these models and choose the best one for a use case?
Mike, did you hear the question?
No, not at all.
Why would you use? Do you want to stand up? I think there's a mic up there.
I think the question is, why would you choose one API over the other?
Correct.
How do you choose GPT or Palm or whatever with respect to your use case?
Sure. So this is just one of many. Meta has Llama, LLAMA. There's lots of other ones. And the nuances, there's many different details to why you would choose one API over the other. A lot of it has to do with the responses that you get back. I've created a startup for myself based on it generates travel itineraries using generative AI. And what I've noticed is the responses from Palm and OpenAI are different. So that's one reason, like you may end up writing your prompts in a certain way that work better with one AI versus the other. Although there is no lock-in, which is kind of cool. The other important reason, and this is common to all software and all systems, is cost. There is a cost for every API call for Palm and OpenAI. And of course, if you're creating very big, complex calls, it can get very expensive. One thing I'll mention, let me just go back and just show something real quick. Okay. We're looking at my notebook again. So working with OpenAI, in order to change from 3.5 to 4.0, the current version, all you have to do is change this model. When you change that model to 4, which 4 has a broader information base and a more current data set, so you want to use that, your cost goes up like 5-fold. So those sort of things are super important. So there's lots of different reasons why you might want to choose one model versus the other. And that's kind of something that is going to be very use case specific. That was a really good question, by the way.
Any other questions? One more question. I'm sorry, I can't hear his question.
Why not use from transformers import pipeline and then use the pipeline function to get the cost?
How do you use it, or when do you use it?
Like, why not use that
Did you hear the question?
Nope, I did it.
Why use the
Why is the long lifetime constants from?
Are you analyzing the code right now? Okay.
Generate, I mean, it's, generate text, I mean, it's function, it looks like there's a shorter way to do that, which if I just call it pipeline.
Okay. So he's asking why use the function instead of why not call the pipeline? I mean code.
I'm not sure. I mean, like but I'm probably just not sophisticated enough at Python to know what a pipeline is, honestly.
Actually, I'll make a connection and you guys can go ahead. And one last question.
Yeah, so what is Mike's recommendation on sources to follow to keep up with the best practices within like large language model field?
Mike?
So there's so much. That's a good question. Also, who to follow to keep up. We already mentioned Lawrence Maroney, and he is doing stuff with the let me just look at what his foundation or like what the
Deep learning AI?
Deep Learning AI. Thank you. Yep, I didn't have to look it up. Deep Learning AI is great. They have a lot of open source, free free courses. And the nice thing about their courses is they provide like a little sandbox, so you don't have to install anything. You can just follow along. That Lawrence Maroney course was really great. And then the other thing that I like is the Neutron, which is a daily newsletter I just get in my email. It has a lot of great prompt suggestions. They just that's the stuff.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Mike.
But yeah, I want to get a